Deham Shri Guru Shri Yata Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishikam Vitam Scha Om Jnana Timiranda Shagarajana Shalakya Chakshuram Damyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Gurva Bistam Supurakam Guraganana Sisha Sambhusitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipanam Shri Rupa Patanagam Govinda Bidam Ujwalam Bharatanum Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Bande Vishwav Gurun Cha Divyat Bhagavat Prem Noe Bija Pranam Devam Divyat Tanum Suchanda Varanam Balarka Chelan Sandrananda Puram Sadeka Varanam Vairagya Vidyam Buddhim Shri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Banditam Shubhanam Madeka Sharanam Nyashishvara Shidaram Vansha Kaupatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Nama Namo Mahabaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gora Tavishe Nama. So we're hearing from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, translation and commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is the Madhya-lila, chapter 11, the Beda Kirtan pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, beginning with verse 1. Ati udandam Tandavam Gorachandra Kurvan Bhaktai Shri Jagannath Gehe Nana Bhavala Kritanga Swakdamna Chakre Vishwam Prema Vanya Nimagnam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu merged the entire world into the ocean of ecstatic love by performing his beautiful dances within the temple of Jagannath. He danced exquisitely and jumped high. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Sri Advaita Prabhu. And all glories to all the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Aradina Sarvabhauma Kahe Prabhu Stane Abhaya Dana Deho Jadi Kore Nivedane. The next day, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give him permission to submit a statement without fear. Prabhu ko he kaha tumi nahi kichubai Jogya hoile koriba ajogya hoile noi. The Lord gave the Bhattacharya assurance that he could speak without fear, but added that if his statement were suitable, he would accept it, and if it were not, he would reject it. Sarvabhauma Kohe Prataparudra Rai Udkanta Hayache Toma Milibari Chai. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, there is a king named Prataparudra Rai. He is very anxious to meet you, and he wants your permission. Karne hasta dibya prabhu smare narayana Sarvabhauma kaha kena ajogya bachana. As soon as Mahaprabhu heard this proposal, he immediately covered his ears with his hands and said, Narayana, my dear Sarvabhauma, why are you requesting such an undesirable thing from me? Virakta sannyasi amara raja darshan stri darshana sama vishara bakan. Since I am a sannyasi in the renounced order, it is as dangerous for me to meet a king as to meet a woman. To meet either would be just like drinking poison. Niskinchanasya bhagavad bhajanon mukasya param param vigam mishor bhava sagarasya. Param Jigamishor Bhava Sagarasya Sandarshanam Vishayinam Ata Yoshitam Cha Ahanta Hanta Visha Bhakshanatopi Hasadu. Greatly lamenting, the Lord then informed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, alas for a person who is seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives, seeing a materialist engaged in sense gratification, or seeing a woman who is similarly interested is more abominable than drinking poison willingly. So, one of the things here to note is, let's see, where it says here, the first line, Niskinchanasya Bhagavad Bhajanon Mukasya. So, where Prabhupada says, alas for a person who is seriously desiring to cross the ocean, the material ocean, engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives, seeing a materialist engaged in sense gratification, or seeing a woman who is similarly interested. Now here, in this first line, it says, Niskinchanasya. So this is a person who has completely detached himself from material enjoyment. So this is not just one sense. It is a person who is seriously desiring to cross the material ocean. But this is a niskinchan, like a niskinchan, somebody who is completely detached from material life. Niskinchan, like you would say, the Niskinchana Babaji or Niskinchan sannyasi. It means somebody who's very, very detached and is a renunciant. So naturally, you could say that about a renunciant. Of course, it is true, and Prabhupada's making the point that material enjoyment begins really with attachment of man for woman and woman for man. That's going on in every species of life, and that is the main ingredient of material attachment. I mean, there's so many things that you can be attached to, but this kind of sexual attachment is very strong. So that will be one of the main ingredients of attachment to material life. That's what's being mentioned here. But Mahaprabhu is making the point why he doesn't want to meet with a king, because he's saying a king is a personification of material enjoyment. He has everything. He's rich. He's surrounded by women. He's surrounded by all kinds of any kind of enjoyment is available to a king. So Mahaprabhu is saying this is very incongruous. A renunciant meeting with a king, they're like the opposite ends of the spectrum. So he says, how can you ask this of me? Sarvabhauma, because Mahaprabhu really is a Niskinchana Babaji, or not just, Babaji is not the right word. He's a virakta sannyasi. He's extremely renounced, Mahaprabhu. Like, Sarvabhauma kohe satya tomara bachan Jagannath sevaka raja kintu bhaktotam Sarvabhauma kohe satya tomara bachan Jagannath sevaka raja kintu bhaktotam. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, my dear Lord, what you have said is correct, but this king is not an ordinary king. He is a great devotee and servant of Lord Jagannath. Prabhu kohe tatapi raja kala sarpakar kashtanari sparshe jaiche upaje bikar. Mahaprabhu said, although it is correct that the king is a great devotee, he is still to be considered a venomous snake. Similarly, even though a woman be made of wood, one becomes agitated simply by touching her form. So someone could say, well, this is very strong feeling. Although a king is a devotee, still he is to be considered a venomous snake. But similarly, even though a woman be made of wood, one becomes agitated simply by touching her form. So this, what Mahaprabhu is stating, these are strong impediments in the sense that there is inherent in both the king and the form of a woman, there is inherent in that what will be difficult, Mahaprabhu says, for someone who's strongly renounced. Now, we'll see. This is, we can say, this maybe the scriptural viewpoint in the scriptures that said one should not even sit in a solitary place with one's own daughter. So these are very strong sentiments mentioned in the scripture. We'll see later on. I'm just giving, this is a spoiler alert, like they will say. Then Mahaprabhu later embraces the king and meets with him, but in this stage, Mahaprabhu is showing what is the standard for devotees. He's saying, don't go to rich people to curry favors, and don't secretly meet with women for enjoyment. He's saying this is, look what, later on, what will happen with Chota Haridas, someone, you can't even imagine, you can't even understand why Chota Haridas should be later chastised Mahaprabhu because he went to beg rice from an old woman who's known as being a super renunciant herself, old and very renounced. And he went to her to beg rice under the instruction of Bhagavad Acharya, to beg rice, which would be a good rice for Bhagavad Acharya to cook for Mahaprabhu's lunch. So he went to her for rice, for begging rice. And because of talking with her, Mahaprabhu rejected him, or apparently rejected him. He wouldn't allow him to come near him. Sometimes it is these points that are being raised seem to be so strong that Chota Haridas is rejected for speaking to an old woman, but Ramananda Roy, who is Vishaka, but Ramananda Roy, he's a married man, he's not like as Chota Haridas, a renunciant in that sense, but he is more renounced. But Ramananda Roy can train young women and to dance and touch them and everything. And Mahaprabhu told a very renounced Brahmin, Pradyumna Mishra, to go hear Krishna Katha from Ramananda Roy. And when he went to hear from Ramananda Roy, Pradyumna Mishra finds him training these women, and to say it in modern terms, his mind is blown. He can't understand it. He goes back to Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu essentially tells him, no, you're just judging externally. Ramananda Roy, not affected in the least. Mahaprabhu says, I'm affected, but Ramananda Roy, not affected. You go back to Ramananda Roy and hear from him. So there's so many things in Chaitanya Charitamrita at face value which cannot be easily understood by somebody who is uninformed and just a mundane person. Just like the Bhagavad Gita itself is, I'm always amazed when I read the first two chapters, especially the first chapter, and I hear how Arjuna is giving arguments against engaging in warfare, which would be completely, like they would win him applause in the modern society, his arguments against warfare and fighting. Whereas Mahaprabhu reprimands him and says, well, speaking learned words, you're mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those are wise lament neither for the living or the dead. So these are sentiments that cannot be easily understood on just superficial value. If you just read something, if you just read the Chaitanya Charitamrita superficially, or you just read the Bhagavad Gita superficially, you won't understand. You will not understand. You will form some erroneous judgment. So so these statements of Mahaprabhu in his, and another thing we can see, who's presenting this? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is very blunt. He's very direct. And Mahaprabhu, he says, I don't know if you're going to like this or not, but I'm just going to tell you anyway. There's a king who really wants to meet you. And Mahaprabhu is like, oh, please. And yet, when Ramananda Raya speaks favorably of the king, Mahaprabhu's heart is moved. And why? Because Ramananda Raya, he's a minister. He knows how to speak to people. He knows how to present something in a way that's favorable, not just bluntly like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says, I don't know if you're going to like this or not, but there's a king who wants to meet with you. Mahaprabhu is like, what? He's like, and we'll hear more statements from Mahaprabhu, give you an idea. Akarana api betavyam strinam vishainam api yataher manasa shobhas tata tasya kriterapi. Just as one is immediately frightened upon seeing a live serpent, or even the form of a serpent, one endeavoring for self-realization should similarly fear a materialistic person and a woman. Indeed, one should not even glance at their bodily features. So, one should not even, one should not see a materialistic person or a woman. Indeed, one should not even glance at their bodily features. But that is very difficult. It's very difficult that will be done, just like Prabhupada presented the story that apparently illustrates the point. He said, two people were arguing. One is saying, well, it's okay when you're young. When you're young, you may be attracted to a woman, but when you're old, you're not attracted. One person said that. The other person says, you're wrong. This attraction is always there through all stages of life, which would seem to be contradicted, because there's where Govinda Maharaj has said, he said, one person presented something like, I don't know the right phrasing, but it was akin to a novel or something something was presented that was basically pornographic almost. Maybe that's too strong a word, but of that nature, pornographic. And it was presented to an old person, and the old person said, this does nothing for me, because this does nothing at all for me, because basically, the person that you're looking for is gone a long time ago. Like, maybe a young man is affected by this, but this does nothing for me, because the person who, could be moved in that way, that person is gone. I'm an old man. What are you thinking? But still, Prabhupada cited this one case where the two persons are arguing. On a different level, still, there's attraction. So then they have this argument, and he said, He said, we will go to see this man who's dying, or in a old person sick in the hospital or something. And he says, bring, I don't remember what the relative is, maybe granddaughter, or bring your, bring your daughter who's attractive and young, or whatever. So they both go to the hospital, and then afterwards they speak, and they said, well, did you notice where that dying man, did you notice where that old man's eyes were focused? And he said, yeah, the eyes were focused on your daughter or whatever, or granddaughter, daughter, I don't remember. But so then Prabhupada said, though that statement proves that this attraction, on whatever level it may be, it never leaves. It never goes away. It's always there. So, these statements are, you can say that Mahaprabhu is talking with Ramananda, speaking with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who's presented this very bluntly, and Mahaprabhu, what he states is references from the scripture. And these references, someone can say, well, these references are really extreme. You can say, yes, they're extreme, but they're there. And Mahaprabhu is a virakta sannyasi. He's a very renounced sannyasi. So Mahaprabhu knows these references. Just as one is immediately frightened upon seeing a live serpent, or even the form of a serpent, one endeavoring for self-realization should similarly fear a materialistic person and a woman. Indeed, he should not even glance at their bodily features. Achibata punarapi mukena anibe kahajari tabe amai etana dekibe. Bhattacharya, if you continue to speak like this, you will never see me here again. Therefore, you should never let such a request come from your mouth. Very strong. I mean, Sarvabhauma asked, let me speak without fear. And Mahaprabhu said, okay, you can speak without fear, but if I like what you say, I'll accept it, and if I don't like what you say, I'll reject it. And then, okay, you can speak without fear. But if you continue, or if you ever speak like this again, you won't see me here anymore. Therefore, you should never let such a request come from your mouth. So that's going to put a little fear into somebody. Bhaya paya sarvabhauma nijagarigila vasaya giya bhattacharya chintita hoila. Being afraid, Sarvabhauma returned home and began to meditate on the matter. Hinakale Prataparudra Purushottame Aila Patramitra Sange Raja Darshane Chalila. At this time, Maharaj Prataparudra arrived at Jagannath Puri, Purushottama, and accompanied by his secretaries, ministers, and military officers, went to visit the temple of Lord Jagannath. Ramananda Raya Aila Gajapati Sange Pratame Prabhure Asi Milila Bahurange. From the other side also you can see, I mean, imagine how, I know there maybe how incompatible it is. Imagine how difficult it was for the residents of Vrindavan and Srimati Radharani to meet with Krishna at Kurukshetra during the time of the solar eclipse. And Krishna came there with, what is it, 1,108 queens, or something like that, with horses, chariots, elephants, everything. And the residents of Vrindavan are going to meet, they're meeting Krishna under those circumstances. You would, Ramananda Raya Aila Gajapati Sange Pratame Prabhuriyasi Milila Bahurange. When Maharaj Prataparudra returned to Jagannath Puri, Ramananda Roy came with him. Ramananda Roy immediately went to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great pleasure. At this time, so we remember when Mahaprabhu met with Ramananda Raya in South India, Mahaprabhu said, I want to take you now with me, and you'll spend the rest of your life with me in Puri. And you quit your job, quit your position as a governor in South India. Quit your position as a governor like that. He had that kind of responsibility. And then Ramananda Roy said, well, it's not going to work right now that I go with you because I have a lot of things. I will leave my service with the king, but I have a lot of responsibilities that I have to finish before we go meet. But I'll come in about 10 days, but I'll be coming. But first I have to settle many things with the king. So then Mahaprabhu was very happy. Now Ramananda Roy is accompanying the king, and he's going to Puri. So when Maharaj Prataparudra returned to Jagannath Puri, Ramananda Roy came with him. Ramananda Roy immediately went to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great pleasure. So he's now there ready to stay with Mahaprabhu. Raya Pramati Koila Prabhu Koila Lingan Duijane Prema Veshe Korana Krandan. Upon meeting Mahaprabhu, Ramananda Roy offered his obeisances. The Lord embraced him, and both of them began to cry in the great ecstasy of love. Raya Sange Prabhordeki Sneha Vyabhahar Sarvabhakta Ganer Mane Hoila Chamatkar. Seeing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intimate dealings with Sri Ramananda Roy, all the devotees were astonished. Because Ramananda Roy, he wasn't born in a Brahmin family. He's considered by them, and they're stratified, maybe stratified like that, but also we can say in a very stereotyped divisions in the society. Ramananda Roy is considered not a Brahmin, he's considered to be a Shudra in the general society. Although we would think a governor is doing the work of a Kshatriya, but still the society is seeing Ramananda Roy as a Shudra, and he's embracing Mahaprabhu, and the two of them are crying. And even the devotees are astonished to see this. Raya Sange Prabhu Radeki Sneha Vyabhahar Sarva Bhakta Ganer Mane Hoila Chamatkar. Seeing Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's intimate dealings with Sri Ramananda Roy, all the devotees there were astonished. Raya Kohe Tomar Agya Rajake Kohila Tomari Chaya Raja More Vishaya Chadaila. Ramananda Roy said, I duly informed Maharaj Prataparudra of your order for me to retire from service. By your grace, the king was pleased to relieve me of these material activities. He accepted. Amiko hiyama hoite nahoy vishai Chaitanya Charane Rahan Shari Agyahoy. I said, Your Majesty, I am not willing to engage in political activities. I desire only to stay at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kindly give me permission. Tomara Nama Shuni Raj Anandita Hoila Asana Hoite Ute More Alingana Koila. When I submitted this proposal, the king immediately became very pleased upon hearing your name. Indeed, he instantly rose from his throne and embraced me. So you can see, this is a difference in a presentation. This difference between how Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, his bluntness, and here you can see why Ramananda Roy is a minister. He's just so smooth in how he presents this. When I mentioned your name, he became ecstatic, arose and embraced me. I mean, who's not going to be moved by that? Tomaranam Shuni Hoila Mahapremavesh Morahate dore kore piriti visesh. My dear Lord, as soon as the king heard your holy name, he was immediately overwhelmed by great ecstatic love. Catching my hand, he displayed all the symptoms of love. He grabbed my hand, and he's displaying this as ecstatic love. Tomaraje vartana tumi kao se vartan, nischintya hoya bhaja Chaitanya Racharan. As soon as he heard my petition, he immediately granted me a pension without reductions. Thus the king granted me a full salary as a pension and requested me to engage without anxiety in the service of your lotus feet. He immediately accepted that I would renounce my service and he would continue to pay me without any reduction. It's like, yes, you can, to serve Mahaprabhu, yes, you can immediately do that. And he was ecstatic. And not only doing that, I'll continue to pay you at the full amount. So, Amichara Jogya Nahi, Taradarshane, Tarije, Bhajetara, Safala Jivane. Then Maharaj Prataparudra very humbly said, I am most fallen and abominable, and I am unfit to receive darshan with the Lord. One's life is successful if one engages in his service. Paramakripa Luteo, Brajendra Nandan, Konjanme Mora Avasya, Dibena Darshan. The king then said, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda. He is very merciful, and I hope that in a future birth he will allow me to have his darshan. Jai Tahara Prema Arti Dikilun Tomate Tara Ek Prema Lesha Nahika Amate. My Lord, I don't think that there is even a fraction of Maharaj Prataparudra's loving ecstasy in me. So look at the difference between the two petitions that are being presented. You know, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, his saying, I don't know if you're going to like this, but there's a king who wants, named Prataparudra Maharaj, who wants to meet with you. Mahaprabhu immediately is shocked. He doesn't want to hear it. And then he tells him so many things. It's so dangerous to meet with a king. It's materialist, like a sannyasi meeting with a woman. Then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says, yes, but he's a great devotee. And later, another time, Mahaprabhu says, yes, he may be a great devotee, but just because he has the name king, it's like a drop of venom in a pot of milk. Just the name king. Just because he's called a king, that's like venom in milk. They will hear that later, but that's Mahaprabhu's reaction. Whereas Ramananda Raya is like, oh, as soon as I told the king your name, he was ecstatic. As soon as I told him I wanted to be with you the rest of my life and serve you, he was so pleased. And he said, and he told me that I hope in a future life I may have darshan of Mahaprabhu. I mean, completely different way of presenting this. My Lord, I do not think that there is even a fraction of Maharaj Prataparudra's loving ecstasy in me. Prabhu kohe tumi Krishna bhakata pradhan tomake je priti kore se bhagavan. Mahaprabhu then said, my dear Ramananda Raya, you are the foremost of all the devotees of Krishna. Therefore, whoever loves you is certainly a very fortunate person. Tomate je eta priti hoila rajar egune Krishna tare koribe angikar. Because the king has shown so much love for you, Lord Krishna will certainly accept him. King Prataparudra requested an interview with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through the Bhattacharya, who duly submitted the request. The Lord, however, immediately refused this interview. Now, when Ramananda Raya informed the Lord how eager the king was to see him, The Lord was immediately pleased. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested Ramananda Raya to retire from his government post and come to Sri Purushottama Kshetra, Jagannath Puri, to live with him. When this proposal was submitted to King Prataparudra, he immediately accepted it and also encouraged Ramananda Raya by allowing him a full pension. This was very much appreciated by the Lord, and this confirms the fact that the Lord is more pleased when one serves the servant of the Lord. In ordinary parlance, it is said, "If you love me, love my dog." Yeah. We always say that. If you love me, love my dog. Even the Chinese devotees, they know that. In fact, that saying exists in Chinese. They say it also, "If you love me, love my dog." Of course, it may be when I was in Hong Kong. And Hong Kong used to be an English colony. So they used to say it's just a joke. They say both the English and the Chinese are dog lovers, but for different reasons. If you love me, love my dog. To approach the Supreme Personality of God, one has to go through his confidential servant. This is the method Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu clearly says. Because the king loves you, Ramananda Raya, he is very fortunate. Krishna will certainly accept him due to his love for you. So that's like, you can say, prophetic. Not prophetic, and just, there's some meaning there. You can understand what's going to happen. Jeme bhakta jana parta, name bhaktas chate jana, mad bhaktanam chaye bhaktas, teme bhakta tamamata. Lord Krishna told Arjuna, those who are my direct devotees are actually not my devotees. But those who say they are my direct devotees are not actually my devotees. But those who are the devotees of my servant are actually my devotees. Adara paricharyayam sarvangar abhivandanam madbhakta prajab vyadika sarvabhuteshu manmati mad artesh vangam chestacha vajasa mad guneranam mayarpanam jamanasa sarvakama vivarjanam. My devotees take great care and respect in rendering me service. They offer obeisances to me with all their bodily limbs. They worship other devotees and find all living entities related to me. For me, they engage the entire energy of their bodies. They engage the power of speech in the glorification of my qualities and form. They also dedicate their minds unto me and try to give up all kinds of material desires. Thus my devotees are characterized. Aradhanam sarvesham vishnura aradhanam param tasmat parattaram devi tadiyanam samarchanam. Lord Shiva told the goddess Durga, my dear Devi, although the Vedas recommend worship of demigods, the worship of Lord Vishnu is topmost. However, above the worship of Lord Vishnu is the rendering of service to Vaishnavas who are related to Lord Vishnu. So we heard Govinda Maharaj explain this, and he's also saying that the Durga asked Shiva, her husband, what is the highest form of worship? And Shiva replies, of all the forms of worship, the worship of Lord Narayan is the highest. And then she's thinking, well, that worship of Lord Narayan is the highest, but I'm not worshiping Lord Narayan. But then the second part of the phrase says, or the verse, however, above the worship of Lord Vishnu is the rendering of service to Vaishnavas who are related to Lord Vishnu. Then Parvati understood. She said, she's thinking, I'm not serving to Lord Narayan, but Shiva, he is a great devotee of Narayan, and I am serving him. So I am serving the devotee of Lord Narayan. Then she felt assured of her position. Durapa e alpatapasa seva vaikunta vartmasu jatro bhagiyate nityam devo janardana. Those whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees progressing on the path back to the kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all living entities. Those whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees, progressing on the path back to the kingdom of God at the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all living entities. So let me see this verse. Durapa ialpa tapasa. It is very difficult to achieve by someone who is only not very advanced in spiritual life. Very difficult to achieve. Seva, service, Vaikuntha Vartmasu, unto persons on the path back to Godhead, back to home, back to Godhead. Vaikuntha Vartmasu, to engage in the service of those devotees. Wherein upagiyate is worshipped and glorified nityam regularly, deva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janardana, Lord Krishna. Those whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees progressing on the path back to the kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all living entities. So what I will take this to mean is this, that there's a statement of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. He said, the Lord wishes to serve his devotees, but the advanced devotees, they do not want to accept any service from the Lord. But if someone will serve those devotees, those advanced devotees, then the Lord will give his mercy unfailingly to those kind of servitors. In other words, advanced devotees, they don't want to accept service from the Lord. But if someone else will serve that advanced devotee, then the Lord is of the mind, what I wanted to do, I could not do because this devotee would not accept service from me. But this other person is doing what I wanted to do, to serve that devotee, so the Lord gives his mercy to that person who is serving that advanced devotee. The Lord couldn't do it, but someone else has taken that responsibility, and the Lord is happy with that person. Puri Bharati Gosai Swarup Nityananda Jaganananda Mukundadi Jadabhakta Brinda Paramananda Puri Brahmananda Bharati Swarup Damodar Lord Nityananda, Jaganananda, Mukunda, and others were present before the Lord at that time. Chari Gosar, Koila, Rai, Charana Bandhan, Chatajogya, Sabhakter, Korila Milan. Sri Ramananda Roy therefore offered his obeisances to all the Lord's devotees, in particular to these four. Here it's Ramananda Roy therefore offered his obeisances to all the Lord's devotees, in particular to the four spiritual masters. Thus Ramananda Roy suitably met all the devotees. Now it's saying Chari Gosai, these four Gosais or spiritual masters. So there are four worshipable persons there. The four spiritual masters referred to in this verse are Paramananda Puri, Brahmananda Bharati, Swarup Damodar, and Lord Nityananda. So, they're exalted souls. Prabhu kohe rai dekile, Kamalanayan raya kohe ebijai, Pabla darshan. Mahaprabhu next asked Ramananda Roy, have you already visited the temple of the lotus-eyed Lord Jagannath? Ramananda Roy replied, I shall now go visit the temple. Prabhu kohe rai tumi ki karya korile, Ishwarena dekikene age etadi aile. Mahaprabhu replied, what have you done, my dear Rai? Why did you not first see Lord Jagannath and then come here? Why have you come here first? Rai kohe chanana rata hridaya sarati jaha loya jai tahan jai jivarati. Ramananda Roy said, the legs are like the chariot and the heart is like the charioteer. Wherever the heart takes the living entity is obliged to go. So, Ramananda Roy is saying, the legs are like the chariot, but the heart is driving the chariot. My heart took me here. The living entity is obliged to go. Ami ki koriba man iha loya aila Jagannath darshane vicharna koila. Sri Ramananda Roy continued. You're going? You can sit here.
I have a phone appointment.
Oh. You have a what?
Telephone appointment.
Oh, with the doctor. Yeah, now all the appointments are by telephone. Amiki koriba mana iha loya aila Jagannath darshane vichar na koila. Sri Ramananda Roy continued, what shall I do? My mind has brought me here. I could not consider going first to Lord Jagannath's temple. Prabhu kohe shigragiya kora darshan aiche gora jai kora kutumba mila. Mahaprabhu advised, immediately go to Lord Jagannath's temple to see the Lord. Then go home and meet your family members. Prabhu agyapaya rai charila darshane rayara prema bhakta riti bhuje konjane. Having received Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's permission, Ramananda Roy hastily went to the temple of Lord Jagannath. Who can understand the devotional service of Rai Ramananda? Ketre asi raja sarvabhauma bolaila sarvabhauma namaskari tahare puchila. When Maharaj Prataparudra returned to Jagannath Puri, he called for Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. When the Bhattacharya went to see him, the king, when Sarvabhauma went to see the king offered him respects and made the following inquiries. Moralagi Prabhu Pade Koile Nibedan Sarvabhauma Kohe Koinu Aneka Jatan. The king asked, have you submitted my petition to the Lord? Sarvabhauma replied, yes, with much endeavor I have tried my best. So you can see Sarvabhauma is presenting this, but because also the king is very desirous of meeting Mahaprabhu, and he's prompted Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to request. The king asked, have you submitted my petition to the Lord? Sarvabhauma replied, yes, with much endeavor I tried my best. Tatapi na koreteho rajadarshan ketrachari jabin puna jadi kore nebidan. Yet, despite my great endeavor, the Lord would not agree to see a king. Indeed, he said that if he were asked again, he would quit Jagannath Puri and go elsewhere. Shunya rajaramani dukkha upajila vishara koreya kichu kohite lagila. Hearing this, the king became very unhappy and greatly lamenting began to speak as follows. Papi nicha udarite tara avatar jagai madai teho korila udar. The king said, Mahaprabhu has descended to this world just to deliver all kinds of sinful, low-born persons. Consequently, he has delivered sinners like Jagai and Madai. Prataparudra chari korive jagat nishtar E pratigya kore korijachinavatar. Alas, has Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu incarnated to deliver all kinds of sinners with the exception of a king named Maharaj Prataparudra. So he's saying, Mahaprabhu's come here to deliver all sinners except me. He's come here to deliver all sinners except a king named Maharaj Prataparudra, except me. Adarshaniyan api nityajatin samvikshate hanta tatapino mam mad ekavarjam kripayishyatiti nirniyakim so vadatara deva. Alas, has Mahaprabhu made his advent deciding that he will deliver all others with the exception of me? He bestows his merciful glance upon lower class men who are usually not even to be seen. So these lower class men, they're not even to be seen. As he, like Jagai and Madai, he's given mercy to Jagai and Madai, but he won't see me. It's kind of very remorseful. Maharaj Prataparudra. Tara pratigya more na koribe darshan mora pratigya taha bina chadiba jivan. Maharaj Prataparudra continued, if Mahaprabhu is determined not to see me, then I am determined to give up my life if I do not see him. Jadi se Mahaprabhu na pai kripadan kiba raja kiba deho sabha akaran. If I do not receive Mahaprabhu's mercy, my body and my kingdom are certainly useless. Etashuni Sarvabhauma Hoila Chintita Rajara Anuraga Deki Hoila Bishmita. Hearing Maharaj Prataparudra's determination, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya became thoughtful. Indeed, he was very much astonished to see the king's determination. Bhattacharya kohe deva na kora vishal. Bhattacharya kohe deva na kora vishada. Tomare prabhura vashan hoibe prasada. Finally, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, my dear king, do not worry. Because of your firm determination, I am sure that Mahaprabhu's mercy will definitely be bestowed upon you. Teho prema dina tomar prema gadatar avasya koribena kripa tomarupar. As soon as the Bhattacharya saw the king's firm determination, he declared, the Supreme Lord has approached only by pure love. Your love for Mahaprabhu is very, very deep. Therefore, without a doubt, he will be merciful upon you. Tatapi kohiyayami ek upai. E upaya kora prabhu dekive jahai. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then requested, there is one means by which you can directly see him. Rathayatra dine prabhu sabhabhakta loya rata age nritya koribena primavistahaya. On the day of the car festival, on the day of Rathayatra, Mahaprabhu will dance before the deity in great ecstatic love. Prema Veshe Pushpodhyane Koribena Pravesh Sekali Ekale Tumi Chadi Rajabesh. On that Rathayatra festival day, after dancing before the Lord, Mahaprabhu will enter the Gundicha garden. At that time, you should go there alone without your royal dress. Krishna Rasa Parcha Jaya Korite Patan Ekale Jai Mahaprabhu Dari Becharan. When Mahaprabhu enters the Gundicha garden, you should also go there and read the 5 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam about Lord Krishna's dancing with the gopis. In this way, you can catch hold of the Lord's lotus feet. See, this plan is excellent. This is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He didn't know the diplomacy, how to present things, but he has an excellent plan made here. When Mahaprabhu's in Rathayatra day, he's dancing and dancing. Then he'll go into the garden, and then you go there without being dressed as a king, and you begin reading the 5 chapters. Go to 5 chapters of about the Rasa-lila. In this way, you can catch hold of the Lord's lotus feet. Bhaya Jnana Nahi Se Kale Krishna Namashuni Alingana Koribena Tomai Vaishnava Jani. Mahaprabhu will be in a mood of ecstatic love without external. Mahaprabhu will be in a mood of ecstatic love without external consciousness. At that time, as you recite these chapters from Srimad Bhagavatam, he will embrace you, knowing you to be a pure Vaishnava. Ramananda Raya, Ajay Tomara Prema Gun, Prabhu Age Kohite, Prabhu Fire Gilaman. The Lord has already changed his mind due to Ramananda Roy's description of your pure love for him. Shuni Gajapatir Mane Shukopajila Prabhure Milite E Mantrana Dritakoila. Maharaj Prataparudra took the Bhattacharya's advice and firmly decided to follow his instructions. Thus he felt transcendental happiness. Snana Jatra Kabe Habe Puchila Bhattere Bhattakohe Tina Dina Achaye Jatrare. When the king asked the Bhattacharya when the bathing ceremony known as Snan Yatra of Lord Jagannath would take place, the Bhattacharya replied that there were only 3 days left before that Snan Yatra, before that ceremony. Rajare Prabodhya Bhattagela Nijaloy Snana Jatra Dine Prabhur Ananda Ridoy. After thus encouraging the king, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya returned home on the day of Lord Jagannath's bathing ceremony, Snan Yatra. Mahaprabhu was very happy at heart. So that's where I'll start tomorrow. Oh. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama Jaravaya Maharavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Dharadana Shiva Sari Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatam Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Jai Gosai Kori Charana Banan Jai Te Vignana Shabishta Puran Jai Gosai Jarmui Taradas Tasava pada renu mora panchagras. Tade charana sevi bhakta sanibas. Janame janame more ambilas. Echai gosai jabe braje koilabas. Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash. Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman. Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyan. Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamura. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Haribo. Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Ju Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajaka Charyasta Taro Sadhu Shri Shrimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajaka Charya Ashta Taro Sadhu Shri Shrimad Srila Bhakti Rakakshira Dev Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Bharga Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Prem Se Go Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat ki jai, Narottam Srinivas Shamananda Prabhu ki jai, Jayam Vishnupad Vishwavaranya, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai, Jayam Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmalacharya Maharaj ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Acharya Vrinda ki jai, Sri Navadip Dham ki jai, Sri Ramayapur ki jai, Saparshada Sri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai, Saparshada Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Kuladvip ki jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat ki jai, SoCal Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Sevashram ki jai, Ganga Devi ki jai, Tulasi Maharani ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopi Govardhan, Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, all the assembled devotees ki jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.